Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, I can. Can you hear me?
Hold on, can't hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. Yes.
All
Yes.
right, hang on one second. Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Can you hear me? I can hear you.
There we go. Okay.
Oh, okay.
That was weird. I couldn't hear you. I could talk to you apparently, but
Yeah, I could hear you.
well, how are you this morning?
Good. Doing good. How about yourself?
Not too bad. In Columbus, Ohio, it's a little cold.
Oh, yeah.
Not snowing, but it's all right. It's all right. Where are you at?
In Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. All right. Is it snowing?
It's not snowing now, but it's cold.
Not yet. Not yet.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what I'm looking at here in Columbus. But first thing I wanted to do with you is I wanted to ask if you wanted to do a rapid fire question with me.
Okay, yes.
It's super easy. It'll be kind of last 15 minute. We'll just try to get as many questions as we can out, and give me 1 second here to get a timer. I don't know, a lot of people love these. They're pretty simple questions. They'll just be something quick right off the top of your head. Nothing too hard. Nothing too like, where were you the day of?
Oh.
All right. All right. You ready?
I think so.
All right. That's good. What's your favorite season?
Season? I guess summer.
All right. What's your favorite meal?
Meal? A burrito, probably.
All right. Day of the week for chores.
Oh, chores? Every day. I love chores. I live for chores.
Left-handed or right-handed?
I'm right-handed.
Do you like to drive?
I don't know if I would say I like it, but I do it a lot.
All right. Apple or Android?
Apple.
All right. Mac or PC?
I have a Mac.
Coke or Pepsi?
Neither. I don't really drink soda.
Oh, well, that kind of nixes the next one. I was going to say soda or pop.
Oh, for a term? You know,
sure.
I grew up saying pop because my parents are from Iowa.
Midwest.
I say soda.
All right, that's fine. Last one, on brand or off brand?
On brand or off brand? I don't know what that is.
Oh, so so my sister and I kind of get on this. Is like, so whenever you go to the grocery store, do you buy like on brand items or do you buy off brand? My sister is bound to only go to Aldi and get everything off brand, and I'm like, there's certain things that I feel like you gotta get the on brand stuff, but
Yeah.
you're there.
You know, growing up, we always had off brand. But I think I've become more of an on brand person in my adulthood when I can.
All right, well, thank you for doing that. We like doing that to kind of just get a couple laps and get everybody kind of jumped up for the.
Yeah, try to get my brain going here. I'm still drinking coffee.
No, I completely understand. Got my got my cup over here. So let's get into music, Michael. I want to ask the album that is coming out. Let me get it here. Not a Game.
Yes.
What kind of went into making this album? What were some of the influences that went into this?
Some of the influences, you know, making this album, I sort of was going off in a direction that I had never really explored before, with like synthesizer music and stuff like that. And so it was sort of, I was writing the album over several years, you know, and sort of also at the same time delving into like electronic music, synthesizer music, and stuff. And so I think some of the entry points for me going down that path were like Brian Eno, you know, in his like late 70s stuff, and, you know, Kraftwerk and Tangerine Dream and some of those like German 70s synthesizer bands, Cluster, and then also getting into like more like electronic dance music with like Arthur Russell, and then even into early Chicago house with like Mr. Fingers and just like tons of artists doing like all types of stuff. So it's sort of like, as I was like learning about it and getting into it, just like synthesizer music in general, and learning how to use synthesizers and stuff, I just kept learning about this scene and this artist and then this, and just letting myself go down into all of the rabbit holes of everything, and then sort of like trying to work elements from that into the music that I was making. So it's sort of like, in my mind, became sort of like this synthesis of synthesizer music from like this scene and that thing, and just trying to put everything together without trying to sound specifically like one of those. Wasn't trying to just sound like it would be a 70s krautrock thing, but to have elements of that in it, and so and that is still just like, I've been on that kick of just like learning, even though I'm far done with the record, it's just like a fun thing to like keep going down the holes, all the paths.
What got you into synthesizers and stuff like that?
Well, I for most of my life, I've been a drummer. That's like my main instrument, and I played in indie rock bands for like 10 years, just like touring and making records and all of this, and just doing drums. And that's what I grew up playing, drums and everything. And I wasn't ever into electronic music or synthesizer music or anything like that. I was just like, oh, I don't know, it seemed like fake, sort of like, it's not about musicianship, it's about like working these machines, and computers and stuff. And I was like, I'm not interested in that. But then at some point we were working on a record, and one of my bandmates was like, oh, I want to put some synthesizer stuff on here. And he got this, he had a Juno 106, and he like put all these really beautiful sounds, just like soundscape stuff. And I was like, wow, you just like made that on the thing? And he was like, yeah, da da da. And I was like, I don't know, it just intrigued me. So then I was like, I'd like to learn more about that. Like, how does that work? It was just so organic sounding and beautiful. And so I wanted to get one of those same synthesizers that we had, but they're kind of expensive. And so I was looking around online, and I found some on eBay that were broken for much cheaper, like half the price. And so I was like, well, I think I could fix that, maybe. So I bought a broken one, and then like I did a bunch of research and watched a bunch of YouTube videos and everything, and figured out how to fix it. So then, I had taken it all apart, and in learning how to fix it, then I learned about how they work, and then that sort of just like kick-started my fascination with them, and I ended up like buying a bunch of broken ones and fixing them, and then like selling them, until I realized that wasn't actually, the time that it took me to fix them wasn't actually worth the amount that I could make off of it. So I stopped doing that. But I just that got me into just wanting to use synthesizers, and it became a thing for me in doing a solo project. It was like, oh, I can use these as a way to do this whole project myself, without having to like put a band together, which is always the way I worked before. Was you get a band together and you have different instrumentalists and everyone brings like their specialties to the group. But I was like, if I'm going to do a solo thing, part of the point was to not wrangle a whole band together. It was just see what I could do on my own. And using the synthesizers just like was a natural structure for easy way to do that. To be like, I figured out a way to connect them together with like MIDI and like a MIDI brain sort of thing, so I could kind of control all of them all at once, which let me be able to perform just with the synthesizers and drum machines. And so I sort of just used that as the structure for making all the songs on this record.
That's honestly cool, because it sounds like you almost went to like a whole different adventure. Like,
yeah,
not even really looking for it. Like,
right,
it happened like naturally.
Yeah. It was just, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and it wasn't like a plan that I had. I just sort of followed the paths as they happened, and it
just like
brought me to a very specific concrete place in the end.
Yeah, and honestly, and then you kind of dove into another question I wanted to ask with solo project. How is it different? Because being from a background of being a drummer in a band for multiple bands, how is it different now working on your own and having the solo project, and now using the synthesizer? Does that make it easier to work on your own?
In some ways, in a lot of ways, it makes it harder. Working on my own versus working with other people, because when you're working with a group, somebody can always like bring an idea in, and that will spark an idea for you, and you can be like, oh, I'll take that little nugget of an idea and here, what about this? Add this to it, and then that gets, and you can have a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, it gets a snowball.
Right, and so if you're working on your own, sometimes it's hard to be like, where's the nugget of the idea that I can respond to? It's sort of like, sometimes you want someone to bounce something off of,
Yeah.
In other ways, you don't argue as much with yourself as you might with a bandmate.
Depends, right? It could be on who it is.
Yeah, but it's definitely different challenges. Trying to like be completely self-motivated and to sort of like think of, okay, so I have this, now what would I want to do with it? And now where could it go? And try to, it's just good and bad. It's like you have more freedom, but then maybe you have less, smaller variety of ideas coming to the table, because they're all just coming out of your own one head, and just kind of like maybe easier to feel like you get in a rut sometimes, but then it motivates you to like figure something else out, or it's like there's good and there's bad, but it's definitely like a very different type of creative and working experience for sure.
So how do you overcome some of that now, not having that, like you're saying, that bounce back of being able to have bandmates that you can talk to and kind of figure out, hey, what do you think of this idea? How do you kind of get yourself, first one, how do you get yourself motivated to keep going? And then two, how do you kind of come out of that writer's block and get yourself back on track?
Right. Yeah. The motivation thing can be hard, and it's like, basically, there's like times, ups and downs, like periods of being very motivated, and then other times where you're like, I don't know, what's even the point of this? Is anyone even gonna care? But one thing as far as motivation, a friend of mine who's an older artist and an art professor and stuff, he was telling me one time, he was like, what I tell my students is, if you want to be an artist, you have to create art. Just creating art. That's what it is, and so he's like, don't just wait for inspiration to strike, and if you're not inspired, you don't go into the studio. It's like, if you want to be an artist, go to the studio and make art, and that was part of what helped me stay motivated through this, whole kind of searching time that didn't even have like a concrete thing, that I definitely was working towards. It was just like, I was like, I want to do some kind of solo thing and figure it out. And so I got a practice space, and I just went to the practice space every day and just like set up my synthesizers and just started writing, and just kind of made it a structure of like doing it every day, and it kind of felt like sort of like a personal practice, like a yoga practice, or like, whatever kind of an art practice, which is part of what made me call it practice, was because that's how it kind of felt like. That's all it was, and I was just practicing, going to the practice space. But so that was kind of what helped me, thinking about that idea helped keep me motivated, and even work through times of not feeling motivated, but as far as like creativity and bouncing ideas around and where you come up with that kind of thing, through this process I've found other sort of helpful little tricks for ideas, like, if I'm like, I don't even know where to start today, then sometimes it'll be like, well, what's something, maybe like a nugget from a song that I like or that I'm interested in, it's like, oh, I like that bass line from some song, and then I'll try to just like recreate the bass line, and then be like, okay, if this is like a brand new thing, but it has this bass line, now where could it go, to be able to like take a nugget, some starting point, instead of it coming from like a bandmate, and you react to that bandmate's idea. Maybe you get it from someone else, some Brian Eno song or something, and you're like, okay, now where could I go from there? And just sort of make these artificial starting points, and maybe pretend you're in a band with someone. Maybe it's some artist that you really like.
So almost using like your own taste in music and kind of the internet to be able to bounce that back off. So kind of be like, all right, where can I go with this? And give yourself a starting point.
Right, exactly.
Kind of just coming out with what do I do today?
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, you could just like start making random sounds on the keyboard or something, and be like, all right, what if that's where we started? Just whatever my hands just hit, I don't know. Sometimes you just have to come up with some artificial things if you don't have, and then just go from there, And it's definitely helpful to be able to, I mean, I played my versions of songs for my wife so many times. I would just be like, okay, listen to this. What do you think about this? Just because not having anyone to hear what your idea is, like bouncing it off of a bandmate or something, if you're it's hard to get outside of your own head. If you came up with it and you made it, then how can you, it's hard to like be able to listen to it with any type of distance or objectivity. But sometimes even just playing it for someone while you're sitting in the room with them, you can hear your song differently, because you're like, oh, how are they hearing this right now, or how, as opposed to how am I hearing it when I'm in the studio trying to come up with it or something.
And been listening to it for like however long you've been working
Right.
that day.
Exactly. Yeah. So sometimes just playing things for people helps have a fresh perspective on what it is you're making too. So I appreciate my wife for listening to 1 zillion versions of everything.
That's what we
You couldn't tell a difference.
Right? They help us out, and they put up with us at times.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to talk about the singles that you put out now. The two, it's the Afterlife, and then oh shoot, I dropped that. What is it?
I Saw Love is another
I Saw
one.
Love. That's what it was. Correct.
Yeah.
So the first thing I like to ask is how does it feel that you've got these two out now, and people are able to listen to them and go out and all that? What does it feel like to just have that out? They're done. It's over.
Yeah, I mean, it feels good. I mean, because this project has been just a long time in the creation stage, and then even after the creation stage, the finished stage, it's been a finished product for a while in my house, and so it. In some ways it feels just kind of like alive now that there's things out there, I was working on it for a really long time, and then just kept tweaking things, because I was like, even after I wrote everything and recorded it, then I spent like a year mixing it, because I hadn't mixed anything before, so it was a whole learning process of how to like mix a record. And man, you can just like tweak every little thing when you're stuck in a mixing hole. And so eventually I was just like, you know what? This is the last. Tomorrow I'm just gonna send this to the mastering guy, and then I can't touch it again. And that's it. It's just gonna be whatever it is by like noon tomorrow. That's final version, So in some ways, like I already had to do that and be like, okay, now it's finished. Can't touch it again. And so now that it's out in the world, it's not the same feeling of being like, oh, it's finally, but it feels like it's finally a living creature.
Yeah, it's doing its own thing now. It's out.
Yeah. It's like releasing it. Now you go be yourself. I've raised you as well as I could. Now.
That's awesome. I like asking that question because I always seem to get a different answer from every artist and every band, because some obviously you've been working on the song for so long, and this is obviously different circumstances with everything that's going on in the world. This is definitely a little bit different. But I love that some people are like, I love it, I'm so excited that it's over, or I'm excited that other people can listen to it with me now, and it's not just me in my house. Like,
right, yeah.
But kind of going off of that, what with these two these two singles that you put out, how has it been different, and how have you gone at it with the pandemic happening, everything going on during the war, to promote these songs, to kind of help also brand your solo act a little bit more? Kind of go into that for me.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely I was planning on putting it out like a year ago or so. I was gonna start, basically right before the pandemic. I was like, oh, I'm gonna start putting out some singles and maybe put the record out in, like last April or May or something. And pandemic happened, and New York City went on a lockdown, and it was just like weird vibes, here, and I know different places experienced it different ways, but in New York it was definitely felt like a dark time, and so I put that, I just sort of like kept pushing it back and putting it on hold, and because I was like, I don't know, when you get to a point where you're trying to like promote your work and promote your record or whatever, just so that people can know that it exists and listen to it, To me, it already feels a little weird. Like I'm not like a self-promoting type of person. That doesn't feel good to me. On the other hand, I do want people to, if nobody knows that you made something, then nobody can listen to it, and you want like people to hear the thing that you do, because that's why you made it, was for people to listen to it. So it's already, it was like a sort of like, I just pushed it back, and was like, there's going to be a better time later, and for me, I wasn't in a rush, to try to get something out. I wasn't on a timeline, or anything, and so kind of like I basically, because we're still in it. It's not like the pandemic is over, although there feels like a ray of hope, and seems like the end is in sight, hopefully, but
yes, hopefully.
but it's kind of like I was just like, let's just start putting it out there, and people, I don't know how, like I kind of haven't used, I don't want to use, the particular situation as I don't know, branding the project in any way, because it's kind of like I made the whole thing before it all happened. I was just gonna put it out, and then it just got pushed back or whatever. So it's not like but it's made it harder, because like in my mind with this project, I was planning on I conceived of it with the synthesizers and everything as being like something to play live, like, because playing live has always been like an important part to me of making music and having a musical act, so not having any shows for the past year basically has been just sort of like definitely put a crank in the hose. Hose here.
It has, man. It's I really just can't wait until live music is just back for April.
I know.
And see performances from artists like you.
I know. Yeah, because just in life, like I go to shows all the time. I have in my entire adult life. I don't go more than a couple of weeks without like going to a show. So that, not to mention that I want to be playing. In the past 15 years, I hadn't gone, you know, more than a month or two without playing a show of some sort, you know. So yeah, it's definitely that element of live music is definitely a big, you know, this year has been a big gut punch as far as that goes.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, it sounds like you're at the very least playing 12 times a year, and probably much more than that before the pandemic hit.
Yeah. I mean, you know, for like 10 years, I was just touring more than 6 months out of the year, like every year, you know, just like playing shows every day. It's just like being in the club and playing, and just like live music has been such a big part of my adult life. So yeah, it was, this year it just felt so weird, just like being home and not doing that.
Yeah.
Such a different time. Well, we'll see how it comes back. I mean, I'm hoping it comes roaring back, you know.
Yeah, I hope so. I've been hoping sooner than later, like for however long now. But
Yeah.
I am kind of what kind of things do you think you have planned? I mean, obviously, I think the first thing most of us have planned is once everything is cleared and we're good to go, we're going to go back out to touring and seeing live concerts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What do you have planned, I'd say, for the rest of this year and post-pandemic?
I mean, I made a New Year's resolution to always go to the rave. If there's a rave, I'm gonna go to it. Spent too many times being like, oh, maybe I'll go to that, and then being like, no, maybe not tonight, and not after this. Always gonna go to the rave.
I mean, that's kind of good words to live by. Like, I think everybody in this past year is really not not gone, but now it's a lot of betting on yourselves and going to the rave, man. Go to the rave. Do not sleep in tonight.
Always go to the rave. AGTR.
Right? Yeah.
I missed a T. Oops.
All right. Well, I don't want to take up any more time of you, Michael. Thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation with me. It's good just to kind of like sit back and have a chill conversation with you, man.
Totally. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll throw your social media stuff up in here, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, man.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You too.
Take it easy.
All right. Bye.